Welcome to On the Sidelines, the show that discusses sports and how sports intersects our lives. I'm your host, Paul McGrath, and I'm glad that you can join us for this special show that deviates from sports but brings us inside the game that Cupid developed. With Valentine's Day approaching, the game of love will be in the air and on the air for On the Sidelines. How, where, and when did spouses meet up? Well, we are about to hear some stories in the game of love. So let's get started. This time, On the Sidelines is going across town to meet our next guest, who I've known for a long time. For full disclosure, she is my daughter-in-law, Jen McGrath. Jen, welcome to On the Sidelines.
Thank you.
This time, though, before we start, I want to give a little story. And that is back in around 1990 or so, I was the president of the Westboro United Way, which we had back in that day. And I became president, and the executive director quit. So anyway, we had to hire a new executive director. We went through the interviewing, and there was a lady by the name of Maria Gasser that we hired as the executive director. So Mary Beth and I went with Maria and her husband Bob out to dinner. And in the course of conversation, it came up that they had a daughter named Jen that went to Boston University, and we had a son named John that went to Providence College. And that was that. And somehow they got together, and I'm sure I'm going to hear some things today that I've never heard before. So, Jenny, you ready to give me a little story? You came from Queens, New York, first of all.
Yep.
And then what happened? You landed up here.
We landed up here. It was not a happy time. I was not happy to be here, but started Boston University. And my parents moved August 23rd. I started BU August 25th. So my knowledge of Westboro was next to none. I knew nobody. So
you probably didn't want to know either.
No, at the time I didn't care. But, so like you said, you met my parents, and I think at one of those conversations, you must have had a conversation about sing-alongs and playing the piano.
When Mary Beth and I were a lot younger, yeah, we did, and we've had different sing-alongs.
But I think you agreed to do one for my mother, because that's one of the things we missed about it Christmas was we'd have a big sing-along.
Oh, that's right. Your mother wanted to sing along on Christmas night.
Yeah. Well, this is before
Even
that.
before Christmas?
Yeah, because you had one, it was like a couple of weeks before Christmas. It must have been 1991, maybe?
Could be.
You probably don't know this part, but so...
The only thing I did on a sing-along is play. You don't want to hear me sing.
Okay. So you did something else important at that time.
Oh.
You brought your whole family.
Yeah?
And so John was at the sing-along. And my mother had all her friends, and there were... I don't even know who was there because I was just from BU. And there were lots of kids. And all I remember was I saw John. He didn't see me because I was like lurking in a corner somewhere, and he was just so good with all these little kids. He just had patience, and he was just, I don't know, something about how he was interacting with all these kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the person I'm going to marry. So, and my mother and everybody in my family thought I was absolutely out of my mind. They're like, you didn't even talk to him. You didn't.
Oh, so you told them?
I told my parents this,
yeah.
And they were like, you don't even know him. You didn't talk to him. And I was like, I just got a sense. I just got this feeling. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. You're nuts. Flash forward a couple of years, and I still had this very strong sense that he is the person I was going to marry.
So you went to BU, but you didn't see him in between time?
No,
okay.
I never saw him.
Yeah.
I heard of him because Chris, my sister Chris, and Dave were friends, and Tommy and
my son Tom. Yeah.
So there were a lot of connections, and I'd hear of him, but that's kind of the extent of it. I think we'd get a Christmas card from you, and I'd see his picture, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, you were not in Westboro.
No.
He was. He was in Providence. You were in Boston.
Eventually, though, I think it was 1993. This had come, and I was living my life. I wasn't like pining over him, but in the back of my head, I always like, John's the one. And my mother was like, you're nuts. My sister was like, you're nuts. My father just didn't even know. And there was my mother says this part is important, but there was one Sunday, I happened to be home. I was working at BU for the summer, and I came home for the weekend, and I don't know, for some reason I went to Mass at 6:30. I wasn't supposed to be there, and my sister wasn't supposed to be there, but we just were like, okay, it's 6:30, let's go to Mass at St. Luke's. And my mother thinks that part is really important, so I'll share that. And John was there with Dave. And since Kristen and Dave were friends, they were going to go to Friendly's with a bunch of friends. And I was like, wait, you're my ride. How am I going to get home? And John said, well, I can give you a ride home. So he did. He gave me a ride home.
So you didn't go to Friendly's. This was,
nope.
You were on your own.
John and I went back to my house. Yeah. And I somehow was like, do you want to come in? I think my mother had some pie or something. And I was like, do you want to come in for a piece of pie? And he did. And like we just started talking. And for some reason, birthdays came up. And I don't know, I think maybe because mine was coming up in a few weeks or whatever. And my mother said, well, John, when's your birthday? And he said, May 4th. And my mother said she got chills. Now, flash back a little bit. May 4th is my mother's birthday. And my grandmother was never supposed to have children. So the fact when I was born, I was this grandchild that never should have been. And I was like the apple of her eye. I was like everything. And I have always had a connection. Like, she died when I was 2. But I've always felt a very strong connection to my grandmother. Like, I have memories of being 2 and being with her. Like, those are my earliest memories. So my mother said, when he said his birthday was May 4th, she's like, she got a chill down her back. And she's like, there's something, she's looking out for you. And so John left. I mean, nothing else happened. He took me home. He had the pie. He left. And she looked at me and she's like, all right, maybe you're not so crazy after all. Maybe there is something to that sense. And she said, but you can't sit at home and do nothing. You need to do something about this. So she's like, what can you do? And I said, I don't know. He likes to run. And I was like, I don't like to run. She's like, well, maybe you should start running. And she's like, he likes the Red Sox. And I was like, yeah, but I don't like the Red Sox because I was a diehard Met fan. And in fact, when we moved up here, that was like one of the things that all my hatred was on the Red Sox. It was like, I'm a Met fan. I'm always going to be a Met fan. I'm never going to like the Red Sox. I'm never going to go to Fenway Park. And she's like, well, he likes the Red Sox. You better do something with the Red Sox. So I went back to VU, and roommate and I started running. She's like, we got up 5 in the morning. Every morning we'd go to Nickerson Field, and I would run. And I went and ordered Red Sox tickets for like the end of the summer. And that's it. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't talk to him. There was any other connection except that. And, flash forward a couple of weeks later, I'm home again for the weekend. And I guess my sister and Dave must have talked, because I was like, can't you do something? Can't you help? And she's like, no, you're on your own. And I don't know. Flash forward one night, Dave calls and is looking for Kristen. And she's not there. And I answer the phone, and he's like, will you just call my brother? Just call and ask him. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know. What if he doesn't like me? And with that, he went, John, phone call. And I was like, oh no. And so I somehow stumbled through and was like, do you want to do something? And he said, sure. And we went to see The Fugitive at White City. And somehow that night, I was like, all right, while he's here, I might as well say something about the Red Sox tickets that I have. So I made up this ginormous lie about a friend of mine had these tickets, and somehow I got them, and what am I going to do with them? And I was like, do you want to go? And he said, okay. So that was the start. And from that point on, we kind of like, we went out every other night. And so flash forward a couple of weeks, by the time we went to the Red Sox, we had been going out for a couple of weeks. And it's a good thing because I got caught in a huge lie. Because what I didn't realize is when you buy Red Sox tickets on a credit card, it had my name on them. Yeah. And so there goes my whole lie about my friend giving me the tickets, and he thought that was really funny. And he kept those ticket stubs in his wallet for like a long time. But we've been together ever since.
And it'll be a happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, so I really think I do give my grandmother a lot of credit. I think she absolutely had something to do with that.
There was something there.
Yeah.
I remember talking to your mother, God knows where, and she said that when your family lived in Queens, you should bring people in the house and should bring them up to the bedrooms. And there's the Mets and, Ron Darling and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, your son really must like the Mets. And Your mother went, no, this is my daughter.
Yeah.
But I think we've converted a little bit, haven't we?
Absolutely. I mean, the first. So that was our very first game was at Fenway, and I don't know. I don't even remember who's playing who, or I didn't care who I was rooting for. I was too busy being in love with John or Goo Goo Gaga or whatever. But eventually we would go, and it was always tough for me because I couldn't root for the Red Sox. But I think actually Tim Wakefield. We'd go and watch Tim Wakefield, and I really liked him, and that was kind of like the start. And I hate to say this, but I put the Red Sox even above the Mets right now, which I didn't think that would ever happen, but
Well,
yeah.
thank you very much. Have a
Yeah.
happy Valentine's
Yeah.
Day. Here we have some pictures from back when. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember these being taken.
I do.
Maybe the one on the left of the wedding day was a beautiful day.
Yeah. The other one's the engagement picture back at Hilton Studios.
Oh, I see.
when they-
Hilton Studios back on Route 9.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember that day. Long time ago.
Well, thanks for coming to
Yeah,
On the
thank you so
Sidelines.
much.
Okay, and have a
All
great
right.
Valentine's
Thank
Day.
you. You as well.
Okay, thanks, Jen. For our next guest, I'm glad just to walk across the street. My guest is my neighbor, Joan Thomas. Joan, welcome to On the Sidelines.
Thank you, Paul.
So you're in Westboro now, but you weren't married in Westboro. Give us a little background of where you came from and then how we got to get
To live in Westboro?
Well, and the fellow you married, yeah.
Okay. I am, unfortunately for your viewers, I am a New York Yankees fan because I grew up in the Bronx, 2 blocks from Yankee Stadium.
And you can't be converted.
I can't be converted. However, I'm the only one in my family that is a Yankees fan. Everyone else is a Red Sox fan.
Well, you raised them correctly.
I guess so. So I grew up in New York City,
Yep.
went to school at Mount Sinai on Fifth Avenue, and graduated many years ago from nursing school. And I worked in pediatrics at Mount Sinai, which was a 1,300-bed hospital back then. And I was doing second shift, and I was in the medication room getting medications ready for a patient, and somebody came in and tapped my shoulder. And I turned around and I looked at this huge, tall med student, and I looked at him, I said, "Sorry, you're not supposed to be in here." And he said, "Miss Garvey," which was my maiden name, he said, "I need keys," because I had all the keys to the place. And I saw the biggest blue eyes I've ever seen in my life, and that's how I met my husband.
So you were you a nurse at that point? You
I had
graduated?
just graduated about 6 months prior to that.
Yeah.
So I was just 20 at the time,
Yeah.
and going to be 21.
So he went to school up here in Massachusetts, of course.
Yeah, he graduated from BC,
Boston College, yeah.
and then he went to Harvard for 3 years, and was studying to be a dentist and realized, I don't like
gee.
working in people's mouths.
Yeah.
And at that point, he decided to apply to medical school. And back then, Harvard medical school and dental school, the first 2 years of basic science, so it's the same
Didn't
course.
matter.
However, they would not let you transfer.
Oh.
So he ended up working with one of the doctors at Mount Sinai doing a research project in juvenile diabetes. And that doctor, Dr. Ginsburg, said, "You need to come to our medical school," and offered him some scholarship money, and that's how he ended up at Mount Sinai.
So you turn around and see this guy, and then what happened? Do you give him the keys, or they happened more?
No, I never give anybody the keys. So I walked him where he needed to go and opened the door for him. And we had a lovely patient that I was his primary nurse. He was a 10-year-old little boy that had a brain tumor. I'm sure you can relate. And his name was David.
Oh, God.
And and I just adored this little boy. Well, Bob was assigned to him. He was doing his externship, as they called it back then, as a fourth-year medical student, and he was assigned to him. But this was my patient. And David said to Bob, "This is my nurse. You should ask her out." And Bob and I kind of looked at each other like, "What?" And so later on, he asked me out, and I said yes. So,
And here we are.
and here we are. And about 6 weeks after that, we got engaged.
Oh my goodness. So he was a fast tracker.
Yeah, my mother was clutching her chest, you
Yeah.
know. An Irish Catholic mother always clutches her chest when she thinks her daughter's going to run off and get married. So we waited a year and got married the following year.
So we have here pictures. We have a couple. I guess on the left, is that your wedding? Which one? What are we
The
talking about?
one on the
here?
bottom is
Yeah?
our wedding. That
That's
was April 28th, 1973.
Yeah.
And the one above it was the year before. We were at some hospital fundraiser. Yeah.
And the one on the right,
And
where
the one
you
on
were
the
fancy dressed and
the
everything.
one
yeah?
on the right was a fundraiser for the Children's Medical Center up at UMass Medical Center, where we both worked, and it was a fundraiser, and it benefited our Child Life program, which is a wonderful program up at UMass. So that was taken there. So yeah.
And unfortunately, Bob passed away, and
Yep.
but we've got great memories.
Yep, he's been gone 21 years.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
time
yeah,
goes on.
Yeah.
But we're very fortunate. I know in the neighborhood we were fortunate to have him, and you were fortunate to have him.
I
as
was.
many
I
years
was
as you
very
have.
blessed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, you know, when Bob would introduce himself, he'd say, "Hi, I'm Bob Thomas." And he would never, ever introduce himself as Dr. Thomas. And I know all your children grew up calling him Dr. Bob.
It's always Dr. Bob for us, and talking about coming across the street, he would come across the street. But he was a great guy, and you're very fortunate. We are fortunate. So I want to thank you for coming on the sidelines to
You're
give us
welcome.
stories, and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Thank you. Okay, this time we're going to go across the border, and I mean the Canadian border, to one of my good friends, Jim Colson. Jim, welcome to On the Sidelines, our Valentine Day special.
Thanks, Paul.
So you got to go back a little bit. You're Canadian, originally from Canada.
Yeah,
So
originally
give
from
us a little
Canada.
bit of background on that, and maybe how Canadians get together.
Okay, well, I was actually born in London, Ontario, which is a medium-sized city. I would say about 300,000 people.
Well, it's a good-sized city.
Yeah, and
London sounds like it's way up north.
yeah. Well, yeah, we were talking about
Yeah.
that earlier. That fun fact, it is actually farther south by a couple of degrees than Boston.
Than here.
Yeah. So,
So you grew up in the south.
I grew up in the South. Yeah, and anyway, I went to school in London. I went to college in London, and then moved to Toronto, and lived there for probably 17 years, working, and then was brought into the U.S. For a vice president's job over at Right Line in Worcester.
Gold Star Boulevard.
Yeah.
I grew up right
Yeah,
over
so
there. So
I moved-
I never saw you there, but I was gone by then.
That was it. And moved into Westboro at that time. It was 1989. And worked there for a couple of years and then started my own business and so on. But yeah, that's what kind of brought me to the U.S.
So that got you here. There's two sides to this story now.
Yeah.
Who can you give us a little bit on the other side of the story? Who you met and
Oh, sure. Well, I actually met my wife in high school.
in London?
In London.
We're back in London now.
Yeah, she was born in London as well, and she and I met. Actually, kind of a funny story. I was on the basketball team, and she was a cheerleader. Now, it's not the typical jock basketball player and cheerleader story. I actually got on the basketball team not because I was very good, but because I was the president of the Boys Athletic Association. And so I think they felt sorry that
Always a
I
little.
should be on the basketball team when I tried out for it. And but I spent a lot of time on the bench, which was actually a good thing because the bench right beside us was all the cheerleaders.
So were you watching the game, or what were you watching?
Well, it wasn't the game all the time, which was a problem. But no, we were at a basketball game one Friday night at another high school, actually, and I had arranged to meet a girl that I had met through my cousin, actually, that went to that school, and she kind of stood me up. I'm sure she probably saw me playing and thought, no way. Anyway, at that dance across the floor, I saw my future wife.
And she was a cheerleader for your high school.
Yeah, so she was at the dance.
She got something to be there.
But she wasn't there with anybody.
Right.
And I had realized that I had been stood up and perhaps better make some other arrangement. And I saw my wife, and you know, in those rom-coms where they go, that moment where they go, ah, honestly, it hit me that way. That's the way I remember it anyway.
Well, that's a good memory.
Yeah, that's what I tell her.
Yeah.
And anyway, I went over and asked her to dance, and you know, thought I was getting along real well. And she said, "Oh, I got to go." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, my dad's picking me up." And I thought, well, okay. But anyway,
Did you think that was like a brush off? I just
well, I thought it was at the time. Yeah, but as it turned out, I was able to kind of engineer her brother. Fortunately, was in my class that year, and so I kind of engineered going over to his place to do homework, and got to know her a little better that way. And I remember our first date because it was her 16th birthday. And we went to Vito's Cave, which was a pizza establishment that was supposed to be the latest rave in London, right, at the time. And we went out, and so that was the sort of the first formal date that we had. And that was back in August of '68.
okay.
Yeah, so we dated for probably another 5 years. Well, it was 5 years.
Well, you went to college in London. Did she?
I did.
Now, was she in college at that time too? or-
No, she was 2 years behind me in,
I see.
in
Oh,
high
I see.
school.
Yeah.
And then she finished high school while I went to college, and then I moved to Toronto. And then she went into nursing for 3 years. At that time, it was a 3-year nursing course to get your registered nurses.
And she's still in London?
She's still in London.
She's still in London to do
so
this, yeah.
I commuted every Friday and Sunday night down to London, which was about a 2.5-hour drive at that time. And as you can imagine, the weather was horrible.
I can imagine. Yeah. It's not the 403. All I hear of was it the 403.
you know,
There must be another road
It's
similar to go to.
It's amazing what you'll do when,
Oh, I
when you're in
understand.
love. You know? Anyway, that's kind of the long story. 5 years later, we were married September 22nd, 1973. And so just celebrated our 52nd
Congratulations.
anniversary last September. Yeah.
Now, did we produce any Americans that can help me pay for my Social Security?
Well, I produced 3 lovely Canadians, 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
And they, of course, moved with us in '89.
Yeah.
They have since got their American citizenship. We all do.
Yeah.
You know, if you were born in Canada, which they all were, and my wife and I, you retain Canadian citizenship for life. But when we came to the U.S., of course, we got a green card first and went through the whole process. It's really it's a long and expensive process, actually. But we went through that process and became American citizens. So we're all, so they're all paying. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's my pleasure.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the sidelines, telling us the Canadian story of how it works. And I think whether you're in the U.S. or Canada, it kind of works the same way.
It does. It does, indeed.
Okay, well, happy Valentine's Day. Thanks again.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay,
Good to
thanks.
be here.
And for our last guest, we're going to go across the lines all the way down to Shrewsbury. We're going to introduce Beth Hollenbeck, who is going to tell us her story of where she met her husband. But before we get there, where are you from originally?
I'm from Dudley,
From Dudley, Mass.
Mass. Went
Oh.
to Shepherd Hill.
Shepherd Hill.
Yep.
Okay, that's very good. So we go from Shepherd Hill and probably a few steps in between, but how do we meet? I believe it's Jim.
Correct.
How did someone from Dudley, where's he from?
He's from Maynard.
Maynard.
Yep,
Okay,
another
so
small town.
okay, so somewhere in between, there's an in between here somewhere.
Right. So my second job out of college was L.R. McCoy in Worcester.
Uh-huh.
And our
Right
CFO.
out on 120 Front Street, I bet.
How do you know that?
I used to work down on 120 Front Street, believe it or not.
Yep, correct.
See, there's always a connection somehow.
Yep, 120.
Yeah, where I was, we're accounting firm, and eventually, after the accounting firm left, you know who ended up in there? The IRS.
Oh,
They-
God.
They took us. So I know that building very
Okay.
well.
Yep. So yeah,
So,
it was a
so you're
90
down in the big city in Worcester.
Yes, in the big city.
Yeah.
And our CFO was, came down the hall into my office one day and closed the door and said, "You're ready." And I said, "I'm ready for what?" And he said, "You're ready to, go on a date." I said, "Okay, with who?" Because I've never been on a blind date.
Yeah. Oh, so this was, you had no idea.
Oh, none.
Yeah.
None. And he said, "Oh, he's a great guy. He played professional baseball." And I'm thinking, "Oh, God, no, I don't want an athlete with an ego and all that." So,
Did you follow sports at that time?
oh, I was an athlete.
You okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you
Love
knew.
sports.
Oh, I don't want those guys.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, "Oh, God, no."
Yeah.
But he's like, "No, he's a great guy." I said, "Okay, can I give him your number?" "Okay."
Now he didn't work for the company at all.
Nope.
No, he was just somehow an acquaintance with.
So my CFO's wife lived near him in Shrewsbury.
Oh, he was okay. Shrewsbury.
Yep.
Okay. Wait a minute. I thought you said May. Oh, so you said Maynard. You're going to screw me up here.
My CFO's wife was from
Oh, I see.
Shrewsbury.
But she knew him from Maynard or wherever.
Because he lived in Shrewsbury then.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So
Okay.
okay. So now what happened?
So he gave him my number, and I said, okay. So he called me the next day at work, and we talked, and he was really nice, funny,
This
laughed.
is just on the phone.
This was on the phone.
Yeah.
This was before cell phones
Oh, I
really were.
understand.
kinda-
I know how that works. Yeah.
And so he said, how about if we meet, we want to meet at the old Chili's in Shrewsbury.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, sure, we can meet there one night. And before we hung up, I said, I just want to let you know, I'm not some petite little thing. And he just laughed, and we hung up, and I went into my boss's office afterwards. I said, he's not going to show up. He's not going to show up. I just told him I'm not some petite little thing. I don't know what he thinks, but he's not going to show up. So anyway, he did show up.
Didn't scare him off.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
It didn't, but so I went to Chili's the next night, and then I went inside and waiting, and then the hostess came over and said, "Are you Beth?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You have a phone call." I said, "Okay." So I went over to the phone, and he said, "Can a guy at the bar buy you a drink?" I said, I turned around because I thought he was there, and I didn't know it, and
Right.
he wasn't there. He was going to be late. So he was going to be late, and I said, okay, I'm going to go wait in my car then because
We're off to a great start here.
So anyway, holds true to today because it's called all in back time. They're all late. So
Okay.
yeah. So he finally got there, and yeah, we met, and the rest was history, I guess.
Was he ever late again?
Oh, all the time.
All the time?
Yeah, all the time. But nope, he had a shirt on, and his arm was he had a big scar on his arm. So that was a
Oh, what did he play? Baseball, football? What did he play?
he played baseball. He was a
Played baseball.
catcher.
Oh, he was a catcher. Oh,
Yeah, he was
yeah.
a catcher. So he had a big scar, and I said, "What the heck happened?" And he was building his house. He almost cut his arm off with a chop saw.
lovely.
So, yeah,
But it all got through.
it got through.
So we
It
got to the
through.
first. I guess we got to the first picture here. It looks like a wedding day.
It
So
was our wedding,
yeah,
2002. Yep, that was at the front of our house
Yeah.
in Shrewsbury. We got a big tent for the backyard, 150 people.
so it worked
So
out.
it did, worked out.
Okay, then
so
where did he take you? A couple of places.
He did. So Arizona, we went golfing with friends of ours out there, 105 degrees. If you ever golfed there, it's great.
Yeah, I've never golfed there, but 105 degrees is not my type of golf. Yeah.
No, it was hot. It was hot. They say it's a dry heat, but it's hot.
No, yeah, 105 is hot
Yeah.
no matter what type of heat it is.
Yeah.
And lastly,
Yankee Stadium,
wow,
2005,
Yeah.
a month before our son was born. Yep,
so that was right after the Red Sox won their World Series in the area.
yep.
It
So
looks like a pretty full house there. So,
it was.
Yeah.
It was full, but we had a good time, and thankfully, my son waited a month.
He was a good kid, huh?
Yeah, he was a good kid.
And so it worked out. Maynard
worked
and
out.
Dudley somehow met, and we're in Shrewsbury.
Yeah, and he said, "Dudley, where's Dudley?" And I said, "Maynard." It's kind of like the same, but just opposite ends.
Different, yeah,
They're
they're different
two-
parts, different worlds in
right,
effect.
but two small
yeah.
little towns, and yeah.
Well, Beth, I want to thank you for coming on and telling your story on the sidelines.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Our last couple comes from what is known as the greatest generation. And I'm talking about a couple, and this couple I know very well. They are my parents. On the left, we have my mother, Augusta Dorothy Thomas, who hated her name, Augusta, and went by the name of Tommy, and my father, Paul Francis McGrath. He was in the Army, she was in the Navy, and this is a story of two people of opposites attract. If that was ever true, this is the true story. As you can see, he was an Army captain. She was in the U.S. Navy. She was a nurse. When I was young, I rooted for the Army. He was a Democrat, and she was a Republican. I am in the middle. I'm an independent. He was Catholic, went to daily Mass as often as he could. She was Protestant and never went to church that I knew of, but she would watch, when I was younger, Bishop Sheen and Billy Graham. I was raised Catholic. He grew up in the second largest city in New England, Worcester, Massachusetts. She grew up in a small central town in Pennsylvania, Brisbane, Pennsylvania. The population wavered 400, 500, 600, 300, not that big. I grew up in Worcester. He was Irish. She was not. I think I'm somewhere in the middle there. The only number that came close, or what came close, was number 7. Because when my father was 7, his father, my grandfather, passed away. And when my mother was 7, her parents divorced, which was unusual in that time. So how did these two people get together with all these differences? Well, really, it took a war to get them together, World War II. My mother had gone to Wilmington, Delaware, Wilmington General Hospital for nurse training and became a nurse. And she and my grandmother went to one of those military dances down that way, and my father was there. So I guess he noticed them and he came over and he asked for a dance. But he asked my grandmother for a dance. So this is what you have to realize. My mother was 7 years younger than my father. My grandmother was 12 years older than my father. So he was like in the middle. But anyway, I think he was kind of scouting out my mother, asked my mother to dance, and then after a while said, well, how about next weekend we go to a movie? Well, if you knew my father, that was a key indicator that he was more than interested, because my father hated Hollywood, hated the actors, hated the whole culture of Hollywood. And of course, my mother loved Hollywood. She loved the stars. In all the years I knew my father, he never went to a movie, never even watched a movie on TV. But we'd watch movies with my mother, Pat O'Brien, Errol Flynn, all of them. But somehow she said yes, and he asked. During the week, he called up and said, sorry, I have to go to Washington for a meeting. We'll have to postpone our date. I think she thought that was a royal brush off, but it wasn't. And somehow, somewhere, they got together. And she would become a nurse. She was stationed in the Brooklyn Navy Yard then. And my father told her he'd have to go overseas, wouldn't tell her where or when, but he did. But then my sister found all the letters that he sent to her and the correspondence. They had a lot of correspondence. Many times my father would receive 4 or 5 letters at a time. So much for the U.S. mail in the war, but that's the way it was. One letter I read, I never knew. Toward the end of the war, he'd been in France and Germany, Battle of the Bulge. And he said, I saw the worst thing in my life today, and it was the liberation of a concentration camp. If I hadn't read that letter, I would have never known. But the war did end. He did come back to the United States. My mother at that time was stationed in Mississippi. So somehow, and I don't know how, they met up in Memphis, Tennessee. And on August 4th, 1945, they were married at St. Peter Church in Memphis, Tennessee. And they were married in some kind of a side vestibule, side hall, I don't know where, because at that time, Catholics weren't supposed to marry Protestants. After all, you might get something like me as a result. Anyway, there's a picture of them outside the church, my mother and father in the middle, and then they would come to Worcester, Massachusetts to live, bring up my sister and me for many years. Their marriage would last almost 60 years, and my father would pass away. And then the number 7 comes in again, as my mother would pass away 7 years in a day after my father. My sister and I think she wanted her own day. But at any rate, I do believe that they were part of what was known as the greatest generation, and I was fortunate to have them as my parents. And that concludes our show for Valentine's Day and the Game of Love. I hope you've enjoyed it, and maybe next year you can be on the sidelines. This is Paul McGrath saying thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the game. And if you're not in the game, I hope to see you on the sidelines.